Introduction of Phantasmagoria and Other Poems. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This book has been read by Rosalind Carlyle. Phantasmagoria and Other Poems by Lewis Carroll. Inscription for a Child. Inscribed to a dear child in memory of golden summer hours and whispers of a summer sea. Girt with a boyish garb for boyish task, eager she wields her spade, yet loves as well. Rest on the friendly knee, intent to ask the tale one loves to tell. Rude scoffer of the seething outer strife, unmeet to reach her pure and simple sprite, deem, if thou wilt, such hours a waste of life, empty of all delight. Chat on, sweet maid, and rescue from annoy hearts that by wiser talks are unbeguiled. Ah, happy he who owns the tenderest joy, the heart-love of a child. Away, fond thoughts, and vex my soul no more. Work claims my wakeful nights, my busy days, albeit bright memories of the sunlit shore yet haunt my dreaming gaze. End of introduction. Phantasmagoria from Phantasmagoria and Other Poems by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. This has been read by Rosalind Carlyle. Canto 1. The Trystyng. One winter night at 9:30, cold, tired, and cross and muddy, I had come home too late to dine, and supper with cigars and wine was waiting in the study. There was a strangeness in the room, and something white and wavy was standing near me in the gloom. I took it for the carpet broom left by that careless slavey. But presently the thing began to shiver and to sneeze, on which I said, "Come, come, my man, that's a most inconsiderate plan. Less noise there, if you please." "I've caught a cold," the thing replies, "out there upon the landing." I turned to look in some surprise, and there before my very eyes a little ghost was standing. He trembled when he caught my eye, and got behind a chair. "How came you here," I said, "and why?" "I never saw a thing so shy. Come out, don't shiver there." He said, "I'd gladly tell you how, and also tell you why. But," here he gave a little bow, "you're in so bad a temper now, you'd think it all a lie. And as to being in a fright, allow me to remark that ghosts have just as good a right in every way to fear the light as men to fear the dark." "No plea," said I, "can well excuse such cowardice in you, for ghosts can visit when they choose, whereas we humans can't refuse to grant the interview." He said, "A flutter of alarm is no unnatural, is it? I really feared you meant some harm, but now I see that you are calm. Let me explain my visit. Houses are classed, I beg to state, according to the number of ghosts that they accommodate. The tenant merely counts his weight with coals and other lumber. This is a one ghost house, and you, when you arrived last summer, may have remarked a spectre who was doing all that ghosts can do to welcome the newcomer. In villas this is allus done, whoever cheaply rented, for though of course there's less of fun when there is only room for one, ghosts have to be contented. That spectre left you on the 3rd. Since then you've no been haunted, for as he never sent us word, 'twas quite by accident we heard that anyone was wanted. A spectre has first choice by right in filling up a vacancy, then phantom, goblin, elf, and sprite. If all these fail them, they invite the nicest ghoul that they can see. The spectres said the place was low, and that you kept bad wine. So, as the phantom had to go, and I was first, of course, you know, I couldna well decline. No doubt, said I, they settled who was fittest to be sent. Yet still, to choose a brat like you to haunt a man of 42 was no great compliment. I'm no so young, sir, he replied, as you may think. The fact is, in caverns by the waterside, and other places that I've tried, I've had a lot of practice. But I have never taken yet a strict domestic part, and in my flurry I forgot the 5 good rules o' etiquette we have to know by heart. My sympathies were warming fast towards the little fellow. He was so utterly aghast at having found a man at last, and looked so scared and yellow. At least, I said, I'm glad to find a ghost is not a dumb thing. But pray sit down, you'll feel inclined, if like myself you have not dined, to take a snack of something. Though certainly you don't appear a thing to offer food to, and then I shall be glad to hear, if you will say them loud and clear, the rules that you allude to. Thanks. You shall hear them by and by. This is a piece o' luck. What may I offer you? Said I. Well, since you are so kind, I'll try a little bit of duck. 1 slice, and may I ask you for another drop of gravy? I sat and looked at him in awe, for certainly I never saw a thing so white and wavy. And still he seemed to grow more white, more vapoury and wavier, seen in the dim and flickering light as he proceeded to recite his maxims of behaviour. End of Phantasmagoria, Canto 1. Phantasmagoria, from Phantasmagoria and Other Poems by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Canto 2, His 5 Rules. My first, but don't suppose, he said, I'm setting you a riddle, is, if your victim be in bed, don't touch the curtains at his head, but tack them in the middle, and wave them slowly in and out, while drawing them asunder, and in a minute's time, no doubt, he'll raise his head and look about, with eyes o' wrath and wonder. And here you must on no pretence make the first observation. Wait for the victim to commence. No ghost of any common sense begins a conversation. If he should say, "How came you here?" the way that you began, sir, in such a case your course is clear. "On the bat's back, my little dear," is the appropriate answer. If after this he says no more, you'd best perhaps curtail your exertions, go and shake the door, and then if he begins to snore, you'll know the thing's a failure. By day If he should be alone, at home or on a walk, you merely give a hollow groan to indicate the kind of tone in which you mean to talk. But if you find him with his friends, the thing is rather harder. In such a case success depends on picking up some candle ends or butter in the larder. With this you make a kind of slide. It answers best with suet, on which you must contrive to glide and swing yourself from side to side. One soon learns how to do it. The second tells us what is right in ceremonious calls. First burn a blue or crimson light, a thing I quite forgot tonight. Then scratch the door or walls. I said, "You'll visit here no more. If you attempt the guy, I'll have no bonfires on my floor. And as for scratching at the door, I'd like to see you try." The third was written to protect the interests of the victim, and tells us, as I recollect, to treat him with a grave respect and not to contradict him. "That's plain," said I, "as tear and tread to any comprehension. I only wish some ghosts I've met would not so constantly forget the maxim that you mention." "Perhaps," he said, "you first transgressed the laws of hospitality. All ghosts instinctively detest the man that fails to treat his guest with proper cordiality. If you address a ghost as thing, or strike him with a hatchet, he is permitted by the king to drop all formal parleying, and then you're sure to catch it. The fourth prohibits trespassing where other ghosts are quartered, and those convicted of the thing, unless when pardoned by the king, must instantly be slaughtered. That simply means be cut up small. Ghosts soon unite anew. The process scarcely hurts at all, not more than when you're what you call cut up by a review. The fifth is one you may prefer, that I should quote entire. The king must be addressed as Sir. This, from a simple courtier, is all the laws require. But, should you wish to do the thing, without and out politeness, accost him as my goblin king, and always use in answering the phrase your royal whiteness. I'm getting rather hoarse, I fear, after so much reciting, so if you don't object, my dear, we'll try a glass of bitter beer. I think it looks inviting. End of Canto 2. Phantasmagoria, from Phantasmagoria and Other Poems by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Canto 3. Scarmoges. "And did you really walk?" said I. "On such a wretched night? I always fancied ghosts could fly, if not exactly in the sky, yet at a fairish height." "It is very well," said he, "for kings to soar above the earth, but phantoms often find that wings, like many other pleasant things, cost more than they are worth. Spectres, of course, are rich, and so can buy them for the elves, but we prefer to keep below. They're stupid company, you know, for any but themselves. For though they claim to be exempt from pride, they treat a phantom as something quite beneath contempt, just as no turkey ever dreamt of noticing a bantam." "They seem too proud," said I, "to go to houses such as mine. Pray, how did they contrive to know so quickly that the place was low, and that I kept bad wine?" "Inspector Kobold came to you?" the little ghost began. Here I broke in. Inspector who? Inspecting ghosts is something new. Explain yourself, my man. His name is Kobold, said my guest. One o' the spectre order. You'll very often see him dressed in yellow gown, a crimson vest, and a nightcap wi' a border. He tried the Brocken business first, but caught a sort o' chill, so came to England to be nursed, and here it took the form o' thirst, which he complains o' still. Port wine, he says, when rich and sound, warms his old bones like nectar, and as the inns where it is found are his especial hunting ground, we call him the Inspector. I bore it like a man, this agonizing witticism, and nothing could be sweeter than my temper, till the ghost began some most provoking criticism. Cooks need no be indulged in waste, yet still you'd better teach them dishes should have some sort o' taste. Pray, why are all the cruets placed where nobody can reach them? That man o' yours will never earn his living as a waiter. Is that queer thing supposed to burn? It's far too dismal a concern to call a moderator. The duck was tender, but the peas were very much too old. And just remember, if you please, the next time you have toasted cheese, don't let them send it cold. You'd find the bread improved, I think, by getting better flour. And have you anything to drink that looks a little less like ink and isn't quite so sour? Then, peering round with curious eyes, he muttered, "Goodness gracious!" and so went on to criticise. Your room's an inconvenient size, it's neither snug nor spacious. That narrow window, I expect, serves but to let the dusk in. But please, said I, to recollect, 'twas fashioned by an architect who pinned his faith on Ruskin. I don't care who he was, sir, or on whom he pinned his faith. Constructed by whatever law, so poor a job I never saw, as I'm a living wraith. What a remarkable cigar! How much are they a dozen? I growled. No matter what they are, you're getting as familiar as if you were my cousin. Now that's a thing I will not stand, and so I tell you flat. Aha, said he, we're getting grand. Taking a bottle in his hand, I'll soon arrange for that. And here he took a careful aim, and gaily cried, Here goes! I tried to dodge it as it came, but somehow caught it all the same, exactly on my nose. And I remember nothing more that I can clearly fix, till I was sitting on the floor repeating, 2 and 5 are 4, but 5 and 2 are 6. What really passed I never learned nor guessed. I only know that when at last my sense returned, the lamp, neglected, dimly burned. The fire was getting low. Through driving mists I seemed to see a thing that smirked and smiled, and found that he was giving me a lesson in biography, as if I were a child. End of Canto 3. Canto 4. His Nouryture. From Phantasmagoria and Other Poems by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Rosalind Carlyle. Oh, when I was a little ghost, a merry time had we! Each seated on his favourite post, we chumped and chawed the buttered toast they gave us for our tea. "That story is in print," I cried. "Don't say it's not, because it's known as well as Bradshaw's Guide." The Ghost uneasily replied he hardly thought it was. "It's not in nursery rhymes, and yet I almost think it is. Three little ghostses were set on postses, you know, and ate the buttered toastses. I have the book, so if you doubt it—" I turned to search the shelf. "Don't stir," he cried, "we'll do without it. I no remember all about it. I wrote the thing myself. It came out in a monthly, or at least my agent said it did. Some literary swell who saw it thought it seemed adapted for the magazine he edited. My father was a brownie, sir, my mother was a fairy. The notion had occurred to her the children would be happier if they were taught to vary. The notion soon became a craze, and, when it once began, she brought us all out in different ways. One was a pixie, twa were fays, another was a banshee. The fetching kelpie went to school and gave a lot of trouble. Next came a poltergeist and ghoul, and then twa trolls which broke the rule, a goblin and a double. If that's a snuff box on the shelf," he added with a yawn, "I'll take a pinch." Next came an elf, and then a phantom, that's myself, and last a leprechaun. One day some spectres chanced to call, dressed in the usual white. I stood and watched them in the hall, and couldn't make them out at all. They seemed so strange a sight. I wondered what on earth they were, that looked all head and sack. But mother told me no to stare, and then she twitched me by the hair and punched me in the back. Since then I've often wished that I had been a spectre born. But what's the use? He heaved a sigh. They are the ghost nobility, and look on us with scorn. My phantom life was soon begun when I was barely 6. I went out with an older one, and just at first I thought it fun, and learnt a lot of tricks. I've haunted dungeons, castles, tours, wherever I was sent. I've often sat and hold for hours, drenched to the skin with driving showers, upon a battlement. It's quite old-fashioned now to groan when you begin to speak. This is the newest thing in tone. And here, it chilled me to the bone, he gave an awful squeak. Perhaps, he added, to your ear, that sounds an easy thing. Try it yourself, me little dear. It took me something like a year, with constant practising. And when you've learnt to squeak, my man, and caught the double sob, you're pretty much where you began. Just try and gibber if you can, that's something like a job. I've tried it, and can only say I'm sure you couldn't do it, even if you practise night and day, unless you have a turn that way, and natural ingenuity. Shakespeare, I think it is, what treats o' ghosts in days o' old, wha gibbered in the Roman streets, dressed, if you recollect, in sheets. They must have found it cold. I've often spent £10 on stuff in dressing as a double, but though it answers as a puff, it never has effect enough to make it worth the trouble. Long bills soon quenched the little thirst I had for being funny. The setting up is always worst. Such heaps o' things you want at first. One must be made o' money. For instance, take a haunted tour, with skull, crossbones, and sheet. Blue lights to burn, say, twa an hour. Condensing lens o' extra power, and set o' chains complete. What with the things you have to hire, the fitting on the robe, and testing all the coloured fire, The outfit o' itself would tire the patience o' a job. And then they're so fastidious, the haunted house committee. I've often known them make a fuss because a ghost was French or Russ, or even fae the city. Some dialects are objected to. For one, the Irish brogue is. And then for all you have to do, £1 a week they offer you and find yourself in bogies. End of Canto 4. Canto 5, Byckerment, from Phantasmagoria and Other Poems by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. This has been read by Rosalind Carlyle. Don't they consult the victims, though? I said. They should, by rights, give them a chance, because, the tastes of people differ so, especially in sprites. The Phantom shook his head and smiled. Consult them? No a bit. 'Twould be the job to drive one wild. To satisfy one single child, there'd be no end to it. Of course you can't leave children free, said I, to pick and choose. But in the case of men like me, I think mine host might fairly be allowed to state his views. He said, it really wouldna pay. Folk are so full of fancies. We visit for a single day, and whether then we go or stay depends on circumstances. And though we don't consult mine host before the thing's arranged, still, if he often quits his post, or is no a well-mannered ghost, then you can have him changed. But if the host's a man like you, I mean a man o' sense, and if the house is no too new, why what is that, said I, to do with ghost's convenience? A new hoose doesna suit, ye ken. He'd such a job to trim at. But after 20 years or so, the wainscotings begin to go, so 20 is the limit. To trim was not a phrase I could remember having heard. Perhaps, I said, you'll be so good as tell me what is understood exactly by that word. It means the loosening all the doors, the ghost replied, and laughed. It means the drilling holes by scores in all the skirting boards and floors to make a thorough draught. You'll sometimes find that one or two are all you really need to let the wind come whistling through. But here there'll be a lot to do. I faintly gasped. Indeed. If I'd been rather later, I'll be bound, I added, trying most unsuccessfully to smile, you'd have been busy all this while, trimming and beautifying. Why, no, said he, perhaps I should have stayed another minute, but still no ghost that's any good without an introduction would have ventured to begin it. The proper thing, as you were late, was certainly to go, but with the roads in such a state, I got the nightmare's leave to wait for half an hour or so. Who's the nightmare? I cried, instead of answering my question. Well, if you don't know that, he said, either you never go to bed, or you've a grand digestion. He goes about and sits on folk that eat too much at night. His duties are to pinch and poke and squeeze them till they nearly choke. I said, it serves them right. And folk who sup on things like these, he muttered, eggs and bacon, lobster and duck, and toasted cheese. If they don't get an awful squeeze, I'm very much mistaken. He is immensely fat, and so well suits the occupation. In point of fact, if you must know, we used to call him years ago the Mayor and Corporation. The day he was elected mayor, I know that every sprite meant to vote for me, but didn't dare. He was so frantic with despair, and furious wi' excitement. When it was o'er, for a whim he ran to tell the king, and being thereover so slim, a 2 mile trot was no for him a very easy thing. So, to reward him for his run, as it was baking hot, and he was over 20 stone, the king proceeded half in fun to knight him on the spot. 'Twas a great liberty to take. I fired up like a rocket. He did it just for punning's sake. "The man," says Johnson, "that would make a pun would pick a pocket." "A man," said he, "is no a king." I argued for a while, and did my best to prove the thing, the Phantom merely listening with a contemptuous smile. At last, when, breath and patience spent, I had recourse to smoking, "Your aim," he said, "is excellent, but when you call it argument, of course you're only joking." Stung by his cold and snaky eye, I roused myself at length to say, "At least I do defy the veriest sceptic to deny that union is strength." "That's true enough," said he, "yet stay." I listened in all meekness. "Union has strength, I'm bound to say. In fact, the thing's as clear as day. But onions are a weakness." End of Canto 5. Canto 6. Dyscomfyture. From Phantasmagoria and Other Poems by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. This has been read by Rosalind Carlyle. As one who strives a hill to climb, who never climbed before, who finds it in a little time grow every moment less sublime, and votes the thing a bore, yet, having once begun to try, dares not desert his quest, but, climbing, ever keeps his eye on one small hut against the sky, wherein he hopes to rest; who climbs till nerve and force are spent, with many a puff and pant; who still, as rises the ascent, in language grows more violent, although in breath more scant; who, climbing, gains at length the place that crowns the upward track, and, entering with unsteady pace, receives a buffet in the face that lands him on his back, and feels himself, like one in sleep, glide swiftly down again, a helpless weight from steep to steep, till with a headlong giddy sweep he drops upon the plain. So I, that had resolved to bring conviction to a ghost, and found it quite a different thing from any human arguing, yet dared not quit my post, but, keeping still the end in view to which I hoped to come, I strove to prove the matter true by putting everything I knew into an axiom, commencing every single phrase with "therefore" or "because." I blindly reeled 100 ways about the syllogistic maze, unconscious where I was. Quoth he, "That's regular claptrap. Don't bluster any more. Now do be cool and take a nap. Such a ridiculous old chap was never seen afore. You're like a man I used to meet, who got one day so furious in arguing the simple heat, scorched both his slippers off his feet." I said, "That's very curious." "Well, it is curious, I agree, and sounds perhaps like fibs, but still it's true as true can be, as sure as your name's Tibbs," said he. I said, "My name's not Tibbs." "Not Tibbs!" he cried. His tone became a shade or two less hearty. "Why, no," said I, "my proper name is Tibbets." "Tibbets!" "Aye, the same." Why, then, you're no the party." With that he struck the board a blow that shivered half the glasses. "Why couldn't you have told me so 3/4 of an hour ago, you prince o' a' the asses? To walk 4 miles through mud and rain, to spend the night in smoking, and then to find that it's in vain, and I've to do it again. It's really too provoking." "Don't talk," he cried as I began to mutter some excuse. "Who can have patience with a man that's got no more discretion than an idiotic goose? To keep me waiting here instead of telling me at once that this was no the house," he said. "That'll do. Be off to bed. Don't gape like that, you dunce." "It's very fine to throw the blame on me in such a fashion. Why didn't you inquire my name the very minute that you came?" I answered in a passion. "Of course it worries you a bit to come so far on foot, but how was I to blame for it?" Well," said he, "I must admit that isn't badly put. And certainly you've given me the best of wine and victual. Excuse my violence," said he, "but accidents like this, you see, they put one out a little. 'Twas my fault after all, I find. Shake hands, old turnip top." The name was hardly to my mind, but as no doubt he meant it kind, I let the matter drop. "Good night, old turnip top. Good night. When I am gone, perhaps they'll send you some inferior sprite, who'll keep you in a constant fright, and spoil your soundest naps. Tell him you'll stand no sort of trick. Then, if he leers and chuckles, you just be handy with a stick. Mind that it's pretty hard and thick, and rap him on the knuckles. Then carelessly remark, 'Old coon, perhaps you're no aware that if you don't behave, you'll soon be chuckling to another tune, and so you'd best take care.' That's the right way to cure a sprite, or such like goings on. But gracious me, it's getting late. Good night, old turnip top. Good night." A nod, and he was gone. End of Canto 6. Canto 7. Sad Souvenaunce. From Phantasmagoria and Other Poems by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. This has been read by Rosalind Carlyle. What's this? I pondered. Have I slept, or can I have been drinking? But soon a gentler feeling crept upon me, and I sat and wept an hour or so, like winking. "No need for Bones to hurry so," I sobbed. "In fact, I doubt if it was worth his while to go. And who is Tibbs, I'd like to know, to make such work about? If Tibbs is anything like me, it's possible," I said, "he won't be over pleased to be dropped in upon at 3:30 after he's snug in bed. And if Bones plagues him anyhow, squeaking and all the rest of it, as he was doing here just now, I prophesy there'll be a row, and Tibbs will have the best of it. Then, as my tears could never bring the friendly phantom back, it seemed to me the proper thing to mix another glass and sing the following coronach. And art thou gone, beloved ghost, best of familiars? Nay then, farewell, my darkling roast, farewell, farewell, my tea and toast, my meerschaum and cigars. The hues of life are dull and grey, the sweets of life insipid, when thou, my charmer, art away, old brick, or rather let me say, old parallelepiped." Instead of singing verse the third, I ceased, abruptly rather, but after such a splendid word I felt that it would be absurd to try it any farther. So with a yawn I went my way to seek the welcome Downy, and slept and dreamed till break of day of poltergeist and fetch and fay, and leprechaun and brownie. For years I've not been visited by any kind of sprite, yet still they echo in my head those parting words so kindly said. Old Turnip Top, good night. End of Canto 7. Echoes from Phantasmagoria and Other Poems by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Lady Clara Vere de Vere was 8 years old, she said. Every ringlet lightly shaken ran itself in golden thread. She took her little porringer, of me she shall not win renown, for the baseness of its nature shall have strength to drag her down. Sisters and brothers, little maid, there stands the inspector at thy door. Like a dog he hunts for boys who know not 2 and 2 are 4. Kind words are more than coronets, she said, and wondering looked at me. It is the dead unhappy night, and I must hurry home to tea. End of poem. A Sea Dirge from Phantasmagoria and Other Poems by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. There are certain things as a spider, a ghost, the income tax, gout, an umbrella for 3, that I hate. But the thing that I hate the most is a thing they call the sea. Pour some salt water over the floor. Ugly, I'm sure you'll allow it to be. Suppose it extended a mile or more. That's very like the sea. Beat a dog till it howls outright. Cruel, but all very well for a spree. Suppose that he did so day and night. That would be like the sea. I had a vision of nursery maids. Tens of thousands passed by me, all leading children with wooden spades, and this was by the sea. Who invented those spades of wood? Who was it cut them out of the tree? None, I think, but an idiot could, or one that loved the sea. It is pleasant and dreamy, no doubt, to float, with thoughts as boundless and souls as free. But suppose you are very unwell in the boat, how do you like the sea? There is an insect that people avoid, whence is derived the verb to flee. Where have you been by it most annoyed? In lodgings by the sea. If you like your coffee with sand for dregs, a decided hint of salt in your tea, and a fishy taste in the very eggs, by all means choose the sea. And if, with these dainties to drink and eat, you prefer not a vestige of grass or tree, and a chronic state of wet in your feet, then I recommend the sea. For I have friends who dwell by the coast. Pleasant friends they are to me. It is when I am with them I wonder most that anyone likes the sea. They take me a walk, though tired and stiff. To climb the heights I madly agree, and, after a tumble or so from the cliff, they kindly suggest the sea. I try the rocks, and I think it cool that they laugh with such an excess of glee, as I heavily slip into every pool that skirts the cold, cold sea. End of poem. Ye Carpette Knyghte from Phantasmagoria and Other Poems by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. I have a horse, a right good horse. Nae doe why envy does, who scour ye plain e'en head ye course, till sodden on their nose they lighty with unexpected force. Yet yes, a horse of clothes. I have a saddle, say'st thou so, with stirrups, Knyghte to boot. I said not that, I answere no, yet lacketh such I woot. Yet is some mutton saddle low, part of ye fleece ye brute. I have a bait, a right good bait, as shall be seen in time. Ye jaw of horse yet will not fight, yet use ye's more sublime. Fair sir, how deemest thou of yet? Yet yes, this bit of rhyme. End of poem. Hiawatha's Photographing, from Phantasmagoria and Other Poems by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. In an age of imitation, I can claim no special merit for this slight attempt at doing what is known to be so easy. Any fairly practiced writer, with the slightest ear for rhythm, could compose, for hours together, in the easy running metre of The Song of Hiawatha. Having, then, distinctly stated that I challenge no attention in the following little poem to its merely verbal jingle, I must beg the candid reader to confine his criticism to its treatment of the subject. From his shoulder Hiawatha took the camera of rosewood, made of sliding folding rosewood, neatly put it all together. In its case it lay compactly, folded into nearly nothing, but he opened out the hinges, pushed and pulled the joints and hinges, till it looked all squares and oblongs, like a complicated figure in the second book of Euclid. This he perched upon a tripod, crouched beneath its dusky cover, stretched his hand enforcing silence, said, "Be motionless, I beg you." Mystic awful was the process. All the family in order sat before him for their pictures. Each in turn, as he was taken, volunteered his own suggestions, his ingenious suggestions. First the governor, the father, he suggested velvet curtains looped about a massy pillar, and the corner of a table, of a rosewood dining table. He would hold a scroll of something, hold it firmly in his left hand. He would keep his right hand buried, like Napoleon, in his waistcoat. He would contemplate the distance with a look of pensive meaning, as of ducks that die ill tempests. Grand, heroic was the notion. Yet the picture failed entirely, failed because he moved a little, moved because he couldn't help it. Next, his better half took courage. She would have her picture taken. She came dressed beyond description, dressed in jewels and in satin, far too gorgeous for an empress. Gracefully she sat down sideways, with a simper scarcely human, holding in her hand a bouquet rather larger than a cabbage. All the while that she was sitting still the lady chattered, like a monkey in the forest. "Am I sitting still?" she asked him. "Is my face enough in profile? Shall I hold the bouquet higher? Will it come into the picture?" And the picture failed completely. Next the sun, the stunning Cantab. He suggested curves of beauty, curves pervading all his figure, which the eye might follow onward, till they centred in the breastpin, centred in the golden breastpin. He had learnt it all from Ruskin, author of The Stones of Venice, 7 Lamps of Architecture, Modern Painters, and some others. And perhaps he had not fully understood his author's meaning, but whatever was the reason, all was fruitless as the picture ended in utter failure. Next to him the eldest daughter. She suggested very little, only asked if he would take her with her look of passive beauty. Her idea of passive beauty was a squinting of the left eye, was a drooping of the right eye, was a smile that went up sideways to the corner of the nostrils. Hiawatha, when she asked him, took no notice of the question, looked as if he hadn't heard it, but when pointedly appealed to, smiled in his peculiar manner, coughed and said it didn't matter, bit his lip and changed the subject. Nor in this was he mistaken, as the picture failed completely. So in turn the other sisters. Last the youngest son was taken. Very rough and thick his hair was, very round and red his face was, very dusty was his jacket, very fidgety his manner, and his overbearing sisters called him names he disapproved of, called him Johnny, Daddy's darling, called him Jackie, scrubby schoolboy. And, so awful was the picture in comparison, the others seemed to one's bewildered fancy to have partially succeeded. Finally my Hiawatha tumbled all the tribe together, grouped is not the right expression, and as happy chance would have it, did at last obtain a picture where the faces all succeeded, each came out a perfect likeness. Then they joined and all abused it, unrestrainedly abused it, as the worst and ugliest picture they could possibly have dreamed of, giving one such strange expressions, sullen, stupid, pert expressions. Really anyone would take us, anyone that did not know us, for the most unpleasant people. Hiawatha seemed to think so, seemed to think it not unlikely. Altogether rang their voices, angry, loud, discordant voices, as of dogs that howl in concert, as of cats that wail in chorus. But my Hiawatha's patience, his politeness, and his patience unaccountably had vanished, and he left that happy party, neither did he leave them slowly, with the calm deliberation, the intense deliberation of a photographic artist, but he left them in a hurry, left them in a mighty hurry, stating that he would not stand it, stating in emphatic language what he'd be before he'd stand it. Hurriedly he packed his boxes, hurriedly the porter trundled on a barrow all his boxes, hurriedly he took his ticket, hurriedly the train received him. Thus departed Hiawatha. End of poem. Melancholetta, from Phantasmagoria and Other Poems by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. With saddest music all day long she soothed her secret sorrow. At night she sighed, "I fear 'twas wrong such cheerful words to borrow. Dearest, a sweeter, sadder song I'll sing to thee to-morrow." I thanked her, but I could not say that I was glad to hear it. I left the house at break of day, and did not venture near it, till time I hoped had worn away her grief, for naught could cheer it. My dismal sister, couldst thou know the wretched home thou keepest? Thy brother, drowned in daily woe, is thankful when thou sleepest. For if I laugh, however low, when thou'rt awake, thou weepest. I took my sister t'other day (excuse the slang expression) to Sadler's Wells to see the play, in hopes the new impression might in her thoughts, from grave to gay, effect some slight digression. I asked 3 gay young dogs from town to join us in our folly, whose mirth, I thought, might serve to drown my sister's melancholy. The lively Jones, the sportive Brown, and Robinson the jolly. The maid announced the meal in tones that I myself had taught her, meant to allay my sister's moans like oil on troubled water. I rushed to Jones, the lively Jones, and begged him to escort her. Vainly he strove, with ready wit, to joke about the weather, to ventilate the last on it, to quote the price of leather. She groaned, "Here I in sorrow sit, let us lament together." I urged, "You're wasting time, you know, delay will spoil the venison." "My heart is wasted with my woe, there is no rest in Venice on the Bridge of Sighs," she quoted low from Byron and from Tennyson. I need not tell of soup and fish, in solemn silence swallowed, the sobs that ushered in each dish, and its departure followed, nor yet my suicidal wish to be the cheese I hollowed. Some desperate attempts were made to start a conversation. "Madam," the sportive Brown essayed, "which kind of recreation, hunting or fishing, have you made your special occupation?" Her lips curled downwards instantly, as if of india rubber. "Hounds in full cry I like." said she. Oh, how I longed to snub her. "Of fish, a whale's the one for me, it is so full of blubber." The night's performance was King John. "It's dull," she wept, "and so. Awhile I let her tears flow on, she said they soothed her woe so. At length the curtains rose upon Bombastis Furioso. In vain we roared, in vain we tried To rouse her into laughter. Her pensive glances wandered wide From orchestra to rafter. "Tear upon tear," she said, and sighed, and silence followed after. End of poem. A Valentine from Phantasmagoria and Other Poems by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Sent to a friend who had complained that I was glad enough to see him when he came, but didn't seem to miss him if he stayed away. And cannot pleasures while they last be actual unless, when past, they leave us shuddering and aghast, with anguish smarting? And cannot friends be firm and fast and yet bear parting? And must I then at friendship's call calmly resign the little all, trifling, I grant, it is and small, I have of gladness, and lend my being to the thrall of gloom and sadness? And think you that I should be dumb and full dolorem omnium, excepting when you choose to come and share my dinner, at other times be sour and glum and daily thinner? Must he then only live to weep who'd prove his friendship true and deep, by day a lonely shadow creep, at night time languish, oft raising in his broken sleep the moan of anguish? The lover, if for certain days his fair one be denied his gaze, sinks not in grief and wild amaze, but wiser wooer, he spends the time in writing lays and posts them to her. And if the verse flow free and fast, till even the poet is aghast, a touching valentine at last the post shall carry, when 13 days are gone and past of February. Farewell, dear friend, and when we meet in desert waste or crowded street, perhaps before this week shall fleet, perhaps tomorrow, I trust to find your heart the seat of wasting sorrow. End of poem. The Three Voices from Phantasmagoria and Other Poems by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The First Voice. He trilled a carol fresh and free, he laughed aloud for very glee. There came a breeze from off the sea. It passed athwart the glooming flat, it fanned his forehead as he sat, it lightly bore away his hat. All to the feet of one who stood like maid enchanted in a wood, frowning as darkly as she could. With huge umbrella lank and brown, unerringly she pinned it down, right through the centre of the crown. Then, with an aspect cold and grim, regardless of its battered rim, she took it up and gave it him. Awhile like one in dreams he stood, then faltered forth his gratitude in words just short of being rude. For it had lost its shape and shine, and it had cost him 4 and 9, and he was going out to dine. To dine, she sneered in acid tone. To bend thy being to a bone, clothed in a radiance not its own. The tear drop trickled to his chin. There was a meaning in her grin that made him feel on fire within. "Term it not radiance," said he, "'tis solid nutriment to me. Dinner is dinner, tea is tea." And she, "Yea, so, yet wherefore cease? Let thy scant knowledge find increase. Say, men are men, and geese are geese." He moaned, he knew not what to say. The thought that I could get away strove with the thought but I must stay. "To dine!" she shrieked in dragon wrath, "to swallow wine's all foam and froth, to simper at a tablecloth. Say, can thy noble spirit stoop to join the gormandizing troop who find a solace in the soup? Canst thou desire or pie or puff? Thy well-bred manners were enough without such gross material stuff." "Yet well-bred men," he faintly said, "are not willing to be fed, nor are they well without the bread." Her visage scorched him ere he spoke. "There are," she said, "a kind of folk who have no horror of a joke. Such wretches live, they take their share of common earth and common air. We come across them here and there. We grant them there is no escape. A sort of semi-human form, suggestive of the man-like ape." "In all such theories," said he, "one fixed exception there must be, that is, the present company." Baffled, she gave a wolfish bark. He, aiming blindly in the dark, with random shaft had pierced the mark. She felt that her defeat was plain, yet madly strove with might and main to get the upper hand again. Fixing her eyes upon the beach, as though unconscious of his speech, she said, "Each gives to more than each." He could not answer yea or nay. He faltered, "Gifts may pass away," yet knew not what he meant to say. "If that be so," she straight replied, "each heart with each doth coincide. What boots it, for the world is wide." "The world is but a thought," said he, "the vast unfathomable sea Is but a notion unto me." And darkly fell her answer dread Upon his unresisting head, Like half a hundredweight of lead. "The good and great must ever shun That reckless and abandoned one Who stoops to perpetrate a pun. The man that smokes, that reads the Times, that goes to Christmas pantomimes, Is capable of any crimes." He felt it was his turn to speak, and, with a shamed and crimsoned cheek, Moaned, "This is harder than Bezique." But when she asked him, "Wherefore so?" He felt his very whiskers glow, And frankly owned, "I do not know." While, like broad waves of golden grain, Or sunlit hues on cloistered pane, His colour came and went again. Pitying his obvious distress, Yet with a tinge of bitterness, She said, "The more exceeds the less." "A truth of such undoubted weight," he urged, "and so extreme in date, It were superfluous to state." Roused into sudden passion, she in tone of cold malignity, "To others, yea, but not to thee." But when she saw him quail and quake, And when he urged, "For pity's sake," once more in gentle tones she spake: "Thought in the mind doth still abide, That is by intellect supplied, And within that idea doth hide. And he that yearns the truth to know Still further inwardly may go, And find idea from notion flow. And thus the chain that sages sought Is to a glorious circle wrought, For notion hath its source in thought." So passed they on with even pace, Yet gradually one might trace A shadow growing on his face. End of poem. The Three Voices from Phantasmagoria and Other Poems by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Second Voice. They walked beside the wave-worn beach. Her tongue was very apt to teach, And now and then he did beseech She would abate her dulcet tone, Because the talk was all her own, And he was dull as any drone. She urged, "No cheese is made of chalk," And ceaseless flowed her dreary talk, Tuned to the footfall of a walk. Her voice was very full and rich, And when at length she asked him "Which?" It mounted to its highest pitch. He a bewildered answer gave, Drowned in the sullen moaning wave, Lost in the echoes of the cave. He answered her he knew not what, Like shaft from bow at random shot He spoke, but she regarded not. She waited not for his reply, But with a downward leaden eye Went on as if he were not by. Sound argument and grave defence, Strange questions raised on "Why?" and "Whence?" And wildly tangled evidence. When he, with racked and whirling brain, Feebly implored her to explain, She simply said it all again. Wrenched with an agony intense, He spake, neglecting sound and sense, And careless of all consequence. Mind, I believe, is essence in abstract, that is, an accident, which we, that is to say, I meant. When, with quick breath and cheeks all flushed, At length his speech was somewhat hushed, She looked at him, and he was crushed. It needed not her calm reply, She fixed him with a stony eye, And he could neither fight nor fly, While she dissected word by word His speech, half guessed at and half heard, As might a cat a little bird. Then having wholly overthrown his views, And stripped them to the bone, Proceeded to unfold her own. Shall man be man, and shall he miss Of other thoughts no thought but this, Harmonious dews of sober bliss? What boots it? Shall his fevered eye Through towering nothingness descry The grisly phantom hurry by, And hear dumb shrieks that fill the air, See mouths that gape and eyes that stare, And redden in the dusky glare? The meadows breathing amber light, The darkness toppling from the height, The feathery train of granite night? Shall he, grown grey among his peers, Through the thick curtain of his tears Catch glimpses of his earlier years? and hear the sounds he knew of yore, old shufflings on the sanded floor, old knuckles tapping at the door. Yet still before him as he flies one pallid form shall ever rise, and, bodying forth in glassy eyes the vision of a vanished good, low peering through the tangled wood, shall freeze the current of his blood. Still from each fact, with skill uncouth and savage rapture, like a tooth, she wrenched some slow, reluctant truth. Till, like a silent water mill, when summer suns have dried the rill, she reached a full stop and was still. Dead calm succeeded to the fuss, as when the loaded omnibus has reached the railway terminus. When, for the tumult of the street, is heard the engine's stifled beat, the velvet tread of porters' feet. With glance that ever sought the ground, she moved her lips without a sound, and every now and then she frowned. He gazed upon the sleeping sea, and joyed in its tranquillity, and in that silence dead but she. To muse a little space did seem, then, like the echo of a dream, harked back upon her threadbare theme. Still an attentive ear he lent, but could not fathom what she meant. She was not deep nor eloquent. He marked the ripple on the sand, the even swaying of her hand was all that he could understand. He saw in dreams a drawing room where 13 wretches sat in gloom, waiting, he thought he knew for whom. He saw them drooping here and there, each feebly huddled on a chair, in attitudes of blank despair. Oysters were not more mute than they, for all their brains were pumped away, and they had nothing more to say. Save one who groaned, "3 hours are gone," who shrieked, "We'll wait no longer, John, tell them to set the dinner on." The vision passed, the ghosts were fled, he saw once more that woman dread, he heard once more the words she said. He left her and he turned aside, he sat and watched the coming tide across the shores so newly dried. He wondered at the waters clear, the breeze that whispered in his ear, the billows heaving far and near, and why he had so long preferred to hang upon her every word. In truth, he said, it was absurd. End of poem. The Three Voices from Phantasmagoria and Other Poems by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Third Voice. Not long this transport held its place within a little moment's space. Quick tears were raining down his face. His heart stood still, aghast with fear, a wordless voice, nor far nor near. He seemed to hear and not to hear. Tears kindle not the doubtful spark. If so, why not? Of this remark the bearings are profoundly dark. Her speech, he said, hath caused this pain. Easier I count it to explain the jargon of the howling main. Or, stretched beside some babbling brook, to con with inexpressive look an unintelligible book. Low spake the voice within his head, in words imagined more than said, soundless as ghosts' intended tread. If thou art duller than before, why quittedst thou the voice of lore? Why not endure, expecting more? Rather than that, he groaned, aghast, I'd writhe in depths of cavern vast, some loathly vampire's rich repast. 'Twere hard, it answered, themes immense, to coop within the narrow fence that rings thy scant intelligence. Not so, he urged, nor once alone. But there was something in her tone that chilled me to the very bone. Her style was anything but clear, and most unpleasantly severe. Her epithets were very queer. And yet, so grand were her replies, I could not choose but deem her wise. I did not dare to criticise. Nor did I leave her till she went so deep in tangled argument that all my powers of thought were spent. A little whisper inly slid, "Yet truth is truth, you know you did." A little wink beneath the lid. And, sickened with excess of dread, prone to the dust he bent his head, and lay like one 3/4 dead. The whisper left him like a breeze lost in the depths of leafy trees, left him by no means at his ease. Once more he weltered in despair, with hands through denser matted hair more tightly clenched than then they were. When, bathed in dawn of living red, majestic frowned the mountain head, "Tell me my fault," was all he said. When, at high noon, the blazing sky scorched in his head each haggard eye, then keenest rose his weary cry. And when at eve the unpitying sun smiled grimly on the solemn fun, "Alack," he sighed, "what have I done?" But saddest, darkest was the sight when the cold grasp of leaden night dashed him to earth and held him tight. Tortured, unaided, and alone, thunders were silence to his groan, bagpipes sweet music to its tone. What, ever thus, in dismal round, shall pain and misery profound pursue me like a sleepless hound? With crimson dashed and eager jaws, me, still in ignorance of the cause, unknowing what I broke of laws? The whisper to his ear did seem like echoed flow of silent stream, or shadow of forgotten dream. The whisper trembling in the wind, "Her fate with thine was intertwined," so spake it in his inner mind. Each orbed on each a baleful star, each proved the other's blight and bar, each unto each were best most far. Yea, each to each was worse than foe, thou a scared dullard, gibbering low, and she an avalanche of woe. End of poem. TEMA con variazioni from Phantasmagoria and Other Poems by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Why is it that poetry has never yet been subjected to that process of dilution which has proved so advantageous to her sister art, music? The diluter gives us first a few notes of some well-known air, then a dozen bars of his own, then a few more notes of the air, and so on alternately, thus saving the listener, if not from all risk of recognizing the melody at all, at least from the too exciting transports which it might produce in a more concentrated form. The process is termed setting by composers, and anyone that has ever experienced the emotion of being unexpectedly set down in a heap of mortar will recognize the truthfulness of this happy phrase. For truly, just as the genuine epicure lingers lovingly over a morsel of supreme venison whose every fibre seems to murmur "Excelsior," yet swallows, ere returning to the toothsome dainty, great mouthfuls of oatmeal porridge and winkles; and just as the perfect connoisseur in claret permits himself but one delicate sip, and then tosses off a pint or more of boarding school beer, so also I never loved a dear gazelle, nor anything that cost me much. High prices profit those who sell, but why should I be fond of such? To glad me with his soft black eye, my son comes trotting home from school. He's had a fight, but can't tell why. He always was a little fool. But when he came to know me well, he kicked me out, her testy sire, and when I stained my hair, that belle might note the change and thus admire. And love me it was sure to dye a muddy green or staring blue, whilst one might trace with half an eye the still triumphant carrot through. End of poem. A Game of Fives, from Phantasmagoria and Other Poems by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. 5 little girls of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, rolling on the hearthrug full of tricks and fun. 5 rosy girls, in years from 10 to 6, sitting down to lessons, no more time for tricks. 5 growing girls, from 15 to 11, music, drawing, languages, and food enough for 7. 5 winsome girls, from 20 to 16, each young man that calls, I say, "Now tell me which you mean." 5 dashing girls, the youngest 21, but if nobody proposes, what is there to be done? 5 showy girls, but 30 is an age when girls may be engaging, but they somehow don't engage. 5 dressy girls of 31 or more, so gracious to the shy young men they snubbed so much before. 5 passé girls, their age? Well, never mind. We jog along together like the rest of humankind. But the quondam, careless bachelor begins to think he knows the answer to that ancient problem, how the money goes. End of poem. Poeta fit non nascitur, from Phantasmagoria and Other Poems by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. How shall I be a poet? How shall I write in rhyme? You told me once the very wish partook of the sublime. Then tell me how, don't put me off with your "another time." The old man smiled to see him, to hear his sudden sally. He liked the lad to speak his mind enthusiastically, and thought, "There's no humdrum in him, nor any shilly-shally." "And would you be a poet before you've been to school? Ah, well, I hardly thought you so absolute a fool. First, learn to be spasmodic, a very simple rule. For first you write a sentence, and then you chop it small. Then mix the bits and sort them out, just as they chance to fall. The order of the phrases makes no difference at all. Then, if you'd be impressive, remember what I say, that abstract qualities begin with capitals always. The true, the good, the beautiful, those are the things that pay. Next, when you're describing a shape, or sound, or tint, don't state the matter plainly, but put it in a hint. And learn to look at all things with a sort of mental squint. For instance, if I wished, sir, of mutton pies to tell, should I say, dreams of fleecy flocks pent in a wheaten cell? Why, yes, the old man said, that phrase would answer very well. Then, fourthly, there are epithets that suit with any word, as well as Harvey's reading sauce with fish or flesh or bird. Of these, wild, lonely, weary, strange are much to be preferred. And will it do, oh will it do, to take them in a lump? As, the wild man went his weary way to a strange and lonely pump? Nay, nay, you must not hastily to such conclusions jump. Such epithets, like pepper, give zest to what you write, and if you strew them sparely, they whet the appetite. But if you lay them on too thick, you spoil the matter quite. Last, as to the arrangement. Your reader, you should show him, must take what information he can get, and look for no immature disclosure of the drift and purpose of your poem. Therefore, to test his patience, how much he can endure, mention no places, names, or dates, and evermore be sure throughout the poem to be found consistently obscure. First, fix upon the limit to which it shall extend. Then, fill it up with padding. Beg some of any friend. Your great sensation stanza you place towards the end. And what is a sensation, grandfather? Tell me, pray. I think I never heard the word so used before today. Be kind enough to mention one, exempli gratia. And the old man, looking sadly across the garden lawn, where here and there a dewdrop yet glittered in the dawn, said, go to the Adelphi, and see the Colleen Bawn. The word is due to Boucicault, the theory is his, where life becomes a spasm and history a whiz. If that is not sensation, I don't know what is. Now try your hand ere fancy have lost its present glow. And then, his grandson added, we'll publish it, you know. Green cloth, gold lettered at the back, in duodecimo. Then proudly smiled that old man, to see the eager lad rush madly for his pen and ink and for his blotting pad. But when he thought of publishing, his face grew stern and sad. End of poem. Sighs and Tears, from Phantasmagoria and Other Poems by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. When on the sandy shore I sit, beside the salt sea wave, and fall into a weeping fit because I dare not shave, a little whisper at my ear inquires the reason of my fear. I answer, if that ruffian Jones should recognize me here, he'd bellow out my name in tones offensive to the ear. He chaffs me so on being stout, a thing that always puts me out. Ah me, I see him on the cliff. Farewell, farewell to hope. If he should look this way, and if he's got his telescope, to whatsoever place I flee, my odious rival follows me. For every night and everywhere I meet him out at dinner, and when I've found some charming fair, and vowed to die or win her, The wretch, he is thin, and I am stout, is sure to come and cut me out. The girls, just like them, all agree to praise J. Jones, Esquire. I ask them what on earth they see about him to admire. They cry, "He is so sleek and slim, it's quite a treat to look at him." They vanish in tobacco smoke, those visionary maids. I feel a sharp and sudden poke between the shoulder blades. "Why, Brown, my boy, you're growing stout. I told you he would find me out." "My growth is not your business, sir." "No more it is, my boy, but if it's yours, as I infer, why, Brown, I give you joy. A man whose business prospers so is just the sort of man to know. It's hardly safe, though, talking here. I'd best get out of reach, for such a weight as yours, I fear, must shortly sink the beach. Insult me thus because I'm stout, I vow I'll go and call him out." End of poem. Atalanta in Camden Town, from Phantasmagoria and Other Poems by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Aye, 'twas here on this spot, in that summer of yore, Atalanta did not vote my presence a bore, nor reply to my tenderest talk. She had heard all that nonsense before. She'd the brooch I had bought, and the necklace and sash on, and her heart, as I thought, was alive to my passion, and she'd done up her hair in the style that the Empress had brought into fashion. I had been to the play with my pearl of a Peri, but, for all I could say, she declared she was weary, that the place was so crowded and hot, and she couldn't abide that Dundreary. Then I thought, lucky boy, 'tis for you that she whimpers, and I noted with joy those sensational simpers, and I said, "This is scrumptious," a phrase I had learned from the Devonshire shrimpers. And I vowed, "'Twill be said I'm a fortunate fellow, when the breakfast is spread, when the topers are mellow, when the foam of the bread cake is white, and the fierce orange blossoms are yellow." Oh, that languishing yawn! Oh, those eloquent eyes! I was drunk with the dawn of a splendid surmise. I was stung by a look, I was slain by a tear, by a tempest of sighs. Then I whispered, "I see the sweet secret thou keepest, and the yearning for me, that thou wistfully weepest. And the question is, licence or bans? Though undoubtedly bans are the cheapest." "Be my hero," said I, "and let me be Leander." But I lost her reply, something ending with gander, for the omnibus rattled so loud that no mortal could quite understand her. End of poem. The Lang Coortin, from Phantasmagoria and Other Tales by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The lady, she stood at her lattice high, wi' her doggie at her feet. Through the lattice she can spy the passers in the street. "There's one that standeth at the door and tirleth at the pin. Do speak and say, my popinjay, if I sall let him in." Then up and spake the popinjay that flew aboon her head, "Gae let him in that tirls the pin, he cometh thee to wed." Oh, when he cam the parlour in, a woeful man was he. "And dinna ye ken your lover again, sae well that loveth thee?" "And who would I ken ye loved me, sir, that have been sae lang away? And who would I ken ye loved me, sir, ye never telled me sae?" Said, "Lady dear," and the salt, salt tear cam rinning down his cheek, "I have sent the tokens o' my love this many and many a week. Oh, didna ye get the rings, lady, the rings o' the gold sae fine? I wot that I have sent to thee fourscore and nine." They come to me, said that fair lady. Wow, they were flimsy things. Said, that chain o' gold my doggie to hold, it is made o' they self-same rings. And didna ye get the locks? The locks, the locks o' my ain black hair, whilk I sent by post, whilk I sent by box, whilk I sent by the carrier? They came to me, said that fair lady, and I prithee send nae mair. Said, that cushion sae red for my doggie's head, it is stuffed wi' thy locks o' hair. And didna ye get the letter, lady? Tied wi' a silken string, whilk I sent to thee frae the far country, a message o' love to bring. It came to me frae the far country, wi' its silken string and a', but it wasna prepaid, said that high-born maid. Sae I garred them tak it awa. Oh, ever alack that ye sent it back. It was written sae clerkly and well. No, the message it brought and the boon that it sought, I must even say it mysel. Then up and spake the popinjay, sae wisely counselled he. Now say it in the proper way, gae down upon thy knee. The lover, he turned baith red and pale, went down upon his knee. O lady, hear the waesome tale that must be told to thee. For 5 long years and 5 long years I courted thee by looks, by nods and winks, by smiles and tears, as I had read in books. For 10 long years, O weary hours, I courted thee by signs, by sending game, by sending flowers, by sending valentines. For 5 long years and 5 long years I have dwelt in the far country, till that thy mind should be inclined more tenderly to me. Now 30 years are gane and past, I am come frae a foreign land. I am come to tell thee my love at last. O lady, gie me thy hand. The lady, she turned not pale nor red, but she smiled a pitiful smile. Sic a courtin as yours, my man, she said, takes a lang and a weary while. And out and laughed the popinjay, a laugh o' bitter scorn. A courtin done in sic a way, it ought not to be borne. Wi' that the doggie barked aloud, and up and down he ran, and tugged and strained his chain o' gold, all for to bite the man. Oh, hush thee, gentle popinjay, oh, hush thee, doggie dear. There is a word I fain wad say, it needeth he should hear. I louder screamed, that lady fair, to drown her doggie's bark. Ever the lover shouted mair, to make that lady hark. Shrill and more shrill the popinjay upraised his angry squall. I trow the doggie's voice that day was louder than them all. The serving men and serving maids sat by the kitchen fire. They heard sic a din the parlour within, as made them much admire. Out spake the boy in buttons, I ween he wasna thin. No, wha will tae the parlour gae, and stay this deadly din? And they have ta'en a kerchief, casted their cavils in, for wha will tae the parlour gae, and stay that deadly din? When on that boy the cavil fell, to stay the fearsome noise, gae in, they cried, whate'er betide, thou prince o' button boys. Syne he has ta'en a supple cane, to swing that dog sae fat. The doggie yelled, the doggie howled, the louder I for that. Syne he has ta'en a mutton bane, the doggie ceased his noise, and followed down the kitchen stair, that prince o' button boys. Then sadly spake that lady fair, wi' a frown upon her brow, Oh, dearer to me is my sma' doggie, than a dozen sic as thou. Nae use for sighs and tears, nae use at all to fret. Sin' ye've bided sae well for 30 years, ye may bide a wee longer yet. Sadly, sadly he crossed the floor and tirled at the pin. Sadly went he through the door, where sadly he came in. Oh, gin I had a popinjay to fly aboon me head, to tell me what I ought to say, I had by this been wed. Oh, gin I find another lady, he said wi' sighing tears, I wot my coortin shall not be another 30 years. For gin I find a lady gay, exactly to my taste, I'll pop the question, aye or nay, in 20 years at maist. End of poem. Four Riddles from Phantasmagoria and Other Poems by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Introduction. These consist of 2 double acrostics and 2 charades. Number 1 was written at the request of some young friends who had gone to a ball at an Oxford commemoration, and also as a specimen of what might be done by making the double acrostic a connected poem instead of what it has hitherto been, a string of disjointed stanzas on every conceivable subject, and about as interesting to read straight through as a page of a cyclopedia. The first 2 stanzas describe the 2 main words, and each subsequent stanza one of the cross lights. Number 2 was written after seeing Miss Ellen Terry perform in the play of Hamlet. In this case, the first stanza describes the 2 main words. Number 3 was written after seeing Miss Marion Terry perform in Mr. Gilbert's play of Pygmalion and Galatea. The 3 stanzas respectively describe my first, my second, and my whole. Riddle 1. There was an ancient city stricken down with a strange frenzy, and for many a day they paced from morn to eve the crowded town, and danced the night away. I asked the cause. The aged man grew sad. They pointed to a building grey and tall, and hoarsely answered, "Step inside, my lad, and then you'll see it all." Yet what are all such gaieties to me, whose thoughts are full of indices and surds? X squared plus 7x plus 53 equals 11/3. But something whispered, "It will soon be done. Bands cannot always play nor ladies smile. Endure with patience the distasteful fun for just a little while." A change came o'er my vision. It was night. We clove a pathway through a frantic throng. The steeds, wild plunging, filled us with affright. The chariots whirled along. Within a marble hall a river ran, a living tide, half muslin and half cloth. And here one mourned a broken wreath or fan, yet swallowed down her wrath. And here one offered to a thirsty fair, his words half drowned amid those thunders tuneful, some frozen viand. There were many there, a toothache in each spoonful. There comes a happy pause, for human strength will not endure to dance without cessation, and every one must reach the point at length of absolute prostration. At such a moment ladies learn to give, to partners who would urge them overmuch, a flat and yet decided negative. Photographers love such. There comes a welcome summons, hope revives, and fading eyes grow bright and pulses quicken. Incessant pop the corks, and busy knives dispense the tongue and chicken. Flushed with new life, the crowd flows back again, and all is tangled talk and mazy motion, much like a waving field of golden grain, or a tempestuous ocean. And thus they give the time that nature meant for peaceful sleep and meditative snores to ceaseless din and mindless merriment, a waste of shoes and floors. And one, we name him not, that flies the flowers, that dreads the dances, and that shuns the salads, they doom to pass in solitude the hours, writing acrostic ballads. How late it grows! The hour is surely past that should have warned us with its double knock. The twilight wanes and morning comes at last. "Oh, uncle, what's o'clock?" The uncle gravely nods and wisely winks. It may mean much, but how is one to know? He opens his mouth, yet out of it, methinks, no words of wisdom flow. End of poem. Four Riddles. Riddle 2. From Phantasmagoria and Other Poems by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Empress of Art, for thee I twine this wreath with all too slender skill. Forgive my muse each halting line, and for the deed accept the will. O day of tears! Whence comes this spectre grim, parting like death's cold river, souls that love? Is not he bound to thee as thou to him, by vows unwhispered here, yet heard above? And still it lives, that keen and heavenward flame lives in his eye and trembles in his tone, and these wild words of fury but proclaim a heart that beats for thee alone. But all is lost, that mighty mind o'erthrown, like sweet bells jangled, piteous sight to see. Doubt that the stars are fire, so runs his moan. Doubt truth herself, but not my love for thee. A sadder vision yet, thine aged sire, shaming his hoary locks with treacherous wile. And dost thou now doubt truth to be a liar? And wilt thou die that hast forgot to smile? Nay, get thee hence, leave all thy winsome ways, and the fragrant fragrance of thy scattered flowers. In holy silence wait the appointed days, and weep away the leaden-footed hours. End of poem. Four Riddles. Riddle number 3. From Phantasmagoria and Other Poems by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The air is bright with hues of light, and rich with laughter and with singing. Young hearts beat high in ecstasy, and banners wave and bells are ringing. But silence falls with fading day, and there's an end to mirth and play. Ah, well a day! Rest your old bones, ye wrinkled crones, the kettle sings, the firelight dances. Deep be it quaffed, the magic draught that fills the soul with golden fancies. For youth and pleasance will not stay, and ye are withered, worn, and grey. Ah, well a day! O fair cold face, O form of grace, for human passion madly yearning! O weary air of dumb despair, from marble one to marble turning! Leave us not thus, we fondly pray, we cannot let thee pass away. Ah, well a day! End of poem. Four Riddles. Riddle 4. From Phantasmagoria and Other Poems by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. My first is singular at best, more plural is my second. My third is far the pluralest, so plural plural I protest, it scarcely can be reckoned. My first is followed by a bird, my second by believers in magic art. My simple third follows, too often, hopes absurd and plausible deceivers. My first, to get at wisdom tries, a failure melancholy. My second men revered as wise, my third from heights of wisdom flies to depths of frantic folly. My first is aging day by day. My second's age is ended. My third enjoys an age, they say, that never seems to fade away, through centuries extended. My whole, I need a poet's pen to paint her myriad phases, the monarch and the slave of men, a mountain summit and a den of dark and deadly mazes, a flashing light, a fleeting shade, beginning, end, and middle of all that human art hath made, or wit devised. Go, seek her aid if you would read my riddle. End of poem. Fame's Penny Trumpet, from Phantasmagoria and Other Poems by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Affectionately dedicated to all original researchers who pant for endowment. Blow, blow your trumpets till they crack, ye little men of little souls, and bid them huddle at your back, gold-sucking leeches, shoals on shoals. Fill all the air with hungry wails. Reward us ere we think or write. Without your gold mere knowledge fails to sate the swinish appetite. And, where great Plato paced serene, or Newton paused with wistful eye, rush to the chase with hoofs unclean, and Babel clamour of the sty. Be yours the pay, be theirs the praise. We will not rob them of their due, nor vex the ghosts of other days by naming them along with you. They sought and found undying fame, they toiled not for reward nor thanks. Their cheeks are hot with honest shame for you, the modern mountebanks, who preach of justice, plead with tears that love and mercy should abound, while marking with complacent ears the moaning of some tortured hound. Who prate of wisdom, nay, forbear, lest wisdom turn on you in wrath, trampling with heel that will not spare the vermin that beset her path. Go, throng each other's drawing rooms, ye idols of a petty clique. Strut your brief hour in borrowed plumes, and make your penny trumpets squeak. Deck your dull talk with pilfered shreds of learning from a nobler time, and oil each other's little heads with mutual flattery's golden slime. And when the topmost height ye gain, and stand in glory's aether clear, and grasp the prize of all your pain, so many £100 a year, then let fame's banner be unfurled. Sing paeans for a victory won, ye tapers that would light the world and cast a shadow on the sun, who still shall pour his rays sublime, one crystal flood from east to west, when ye have burned your little time and feebly flickered into rest. End of poem. End of Phantasmagoria and Other Poems by Lewis Carroll. This book has been read by Rosalind Carlyle.